the CanCarib Climate Smart Opportunities Summit 2025 Part 4, where we have with us today all 4 CEOs from the respective utilities across the region. My name is Yasmin Chung, and it is my pleasure to welcome all of you to what we believe is an important and timely conversation. Please allow me to recognize a few of our special guests. This morning, we have with us His Excellency Mark Berman, High Commissioner of Canada to Jamaica and the Bahamas, and he also is Consul General to the Cayman Islands and the Turks and Caicos Islands. We also have with us Michael Lazaruk, our commercial counselor based here at the High Commission of Canada in Jamaica. And I'm very pleased this morning to welcome Dr. Cletus Burton, the Executive Director at CARILEC, who will be our very special guest moderator and is no stranger to many of us, certainly in the regional context. And last but by no means least, let me just recognize Mr. Edison Sumner, who is a consultant from the Bahamas and who has been a tremendous support to us here with this CanCarib Summit. At this time, I'd just like to share a few meeting protocols. So during the panel discussions, we ask that all participants that you mute your microphones and you turn off your videos, just to allow the focus to be with our moderator and our guest presenters. Throughout the discussions, please place your questions in the meeting chat, and you will be recognized in the order that they are received during the open discussion period. And lastly, remember that the webinar is being live streamed and recorded on the High Commission of Canada's YouTube channel. So thanks in advance for your usual kind attention and cooperation. It is now my pleasure to invite His Excellency Mark Berman to bring his opening remarks. High Commissioner, welcome.
Good morning. Can I make sure you can hear me? Because I suddenly cannot hear you, but I will.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
You're loud and clear, High Commissioner.
Fantastic. Well, good morning, everyone. And may I just give greetings, especially invited CEOs. This is Tony Seymour, Bahamas Power and Light Company Limited, Mr. Richard Hugh from the Caribbean Utilities Company Limited, Mrs. Ruth Gardner Forbes from Fortis TCI Limited, and Mr. Ricardo Case, Jamaica Public Service Company Limited, and other invited guest presenters, including the Canadian Commercial Corporation, the Expert Development Corporation, EDC, and Global Affairs Canada's own Climate Finance Division, as well as Cayman Islands Chamber of Commerce, as well as all the rest Canadian and Caribbean business representatives. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning, bonjour. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning. I am indeed pleased to welcome you all to this final segment of the 2025 CanCarib Climate Smart Opportunities Summit. You know, given the current upheaval in global trade relations and disruption of the international rule-based order, this forum is of particular importance for Canada and our Caribbean partners from Jamaica, the Bahamas, Cayman Islands, and the Turks and Caicos Islands. Today's event also provides an opportunity for Canada to recognize and celebrate 2 outstanding Caribbean women in energy who have contributed to the development, growth, and indeed the success of their successive country energy sectors. They are none other than Mrs. Ruth Gardner Forbes, President and CEO of Fortis TCI, and Ms. Nikita Mullings, Chief Operating Officer of the Grand Bahama Power Company. Both awards will be presented virtually later in the program and officially in person at a later date. You know, while our interconnectedness remains a reality that we can't ignore, protectionist policies are creating uncertainty and stoking geopolitical tensions, disrupting mutually beneficial relationships. that have taken decades to nurture and to grow. And in response, the Government of Canada is working to diversify and strengthen its relations with reliable trading partners and allies in the Caribbean region and around the world to build a coalition of like-minded countries that share common values, that we believe in values of international cooperation and free and open exchange of ideas, goods, and services, all with a view to enhance shared prosperity. Canada is not only a smart grid pioneer, but is also at the forefront of the smart and clean energy industry. Canadian companies, including those whose representatives are joining us today, are renowned for their expertise in climate smart project advisory, development, and delivery. A commitment to contributing to the development of cleaner and more efficient energy systems has been manifested in Canadian companies' investments and partnerships, including those in Jamaica, the Bahamas, the Turks and Caicos, and the Cayman Islands. Canadian companies such as Core Renewable Energy Inc., Emera, Fortis, Rosewall Development Inc., Seoul Ecolution, Tuggelec Energy Corporation, Hatch, and scores of others have deployed their world-leading capabilities in the design, construction, operation, and maintenance of energy and clean technology infrastructure throughout this region. Principled approaches and ethical practices, along with on-time and on-budget delivery, are hallmarks of Canadian advantage, as evidenced in the successful projects found throughout the Caribbean and other international markets. Canada values its long-standing and deep commercial networks within the Caribbean, relationships that have often been developed and nurtured by colleagues in the Trade Commissioner Service. Supported by their efforts, Canadian organizations have collaborated on various initiatives in the energy and clean technology sectors in Jamaica, in the Bahamas, in Cayman Islands, and in Turks and Caicos Islands. We believe that the CCSOS initiative, delivered over multiple webinars, has allowed for an in-depth review of project opportunities and exploration of relevant Canadian capabilities. During this morning's final session, we'll hear from CEOs of JPS, JPL, BPL, CDUC, and Fortis TCI organizations, all of which play a key role in their respective markets. In addition, I'm pleased to also welcome representatives from EDC, the Expert Development Corporation, and the Canadian Commercial Corporation, as well as our Climate Finance Trade Commissioner based in Washington, D.C. Before turning the mic over to the moderator, I wanted to say that I hope you'll find today's discussions productive and informative, unlocking new opportunities and facilitating new partnerships. Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much. And I enjoy hearing the rest of the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, High Commissioner. Really appreciate you taking the time, as usual, to be with us and to support these initiatives. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues all, I am so pleased to welcome Dr. Cletus Burton, who will be our special guest moderator for the rest of the session. Dr. Burton is a friend and colleague of most, if not probably all of us. And he has certainly taken the time out of what for him is a very busy week to be with us today. So thank you so much, Dr. Burton. And I'm going to hand over to you and ask that one of your first tasks is to allow the High Commissioner to announce those awards and to virtually present them. Over to you, Dr. Burton.
Oh, thank you so much, Ms. Chung. Yasmin, if I may, it's truly a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the kind invitation. Ambassador, Your Excellency Bonham, if you could proceed with the awards, and then I will get the discussion going with the distinguished CEOs that we have on the panel.
Absolutely. I'll be brief. I've already alluded to the recipients, but I'm really delighted to honor two women who are pioneering sustainable energy solutions in the Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos. And they are, as I've mentioned, Mrs. Ruth Gardner Forbes, CEO of Fortis TCI, and Miss Nikita Mullings, the COO of Grand Bahama Power Company. Today, we recognize women who are breaking barriers, shaping policy and driving innovation. And these achievements remind us that empowering women is not just about fairness, it's about building a better future for all of us. And to our honorees, thank you for your leadership, for your resilience, and for your unwavering dedication. You do indeed inspire us all. Plans are being put in place for me to present these awards in person to these deserving recipients at a later date, and I'm looking forward to that. So again, congratulations to you both. Thank you.
Sorry, Ambassador, I lost audio for a while. Was that a cue for me to proceed?
Absolutely.
Oh, great. Okay, then. I just had a drop in audio. Thank you so much. And commendations, Mrs. Forbes and Mrs. Mullins, on your award. Looking forward to when you will receive the awards in person for your distinguished service to the sector and to the region. There we go. We have the graphic on now. Yasmin, the PowerPoint. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Patricia, could we just show Ms. Mullings, and then we can move on. There you go. Over to you now, Dr. Burton.
Oh, thank you so much. So I'll dive right into the panel discussions. Welcome, colleagues. It's good to see you here in this forum. We've been in discussions in many different forums. Rick Case was just here yesterday at the CARILEC Engineering and Procurement Conference, where he delivered a very profound keynote address on Sunday evening. Thank you so much, Rick, for being here. Other CEOs, you're on mute, Rick. Okay. Right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Mrs. Tony Seymour, welcome to this panel. Mrs. Ruth Gardner Forbes, distinguished President and CEO, and also Vice Chair of the CARILEC Board of Directors. Mr. Richard Yu, long-serving CEO of CUC, and also very supportive stalwart of CARILEC in the region, having served on the board and various committees over the years. And we are very happy to have you join this discussion. Mrs. Tony Seymour, I'm not sure if we've spoken maybe once or twice, but looking forward to meet you in person. And we need to have a discussion about the Bahamas hosting an event sometime soon. So I'll give you a call very shortly.
With pleasure. It'll be my pleasure.
Excellent. Excellent. So the question for the discussion this morning is really very straightforward, but I think quite significant. What's next for your respective companies, territories? There's a lot happening at the moment as we speak at different levels, policy, the legislative and regulatory framework, the technology shifts, market shifts, supply chain issues, a myriad of issues that I guess we could speak to. But if we could perhaps, for the purposes of the panel this morning, frame it in the perspective of what's next in terms of looking down the road, looking forward to as events unfold from your various vantage points, From your perspective, what are the key issues unfolding, the key challenges and solutions from your various vantage points? So I'm not sure, we could probably go in alphabetical order. We start with CUC, Richard, to share your perspective on what's next for the Cayman Islands and CUC in terms of the electric energy sector. Over to you, Richard. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Burton, and good morning, everyone. So here, just a little background. CUC operates the electricity system here in Grand Cayman, the largest island of the 3 Cayman Islands. We have a population of about 85 to 90,000 and growing. The size of the market, our peak demand is 130 megawatts right now. And we operate under 2 licenses, generation license, which is competitive, meaning that when we need capacity as the T&D licensee, which is a monopoly grid operator, we submit to the regulator a certificate of need, which lays out the capacity needs for the grid, capacity and energy, and the regulator will do a public solicitation for that generation capacity. As far as decarbonization or renewables go, we currently have a 5 megawatt utility scale solar plant and 15 megawatts of rooftop solar, which contributes 3% of our energy. It's a small number, which we're not pleased with. CUC's own integrated resource plan shows that the optimal mix is in the 60 to 70% renewables range when it comes to maintaining reliability and least cost service energy on the grid. That 3%, although small, has been holding as the demand grows. We have been adding rooftop solar, so it's been pretty steady at 3% of the total energy for the past few years. CUC has also recently installed a 20 megawatt battery, which is used for spinning reserve, but also grid stability to host more distributed generation. And also the Utility Regulations and Competition Office, ERCO, just issued an RFP for 22.5 megawatt solar plus storage facility. That has been in the works for some time. Some of you on this in the audience may be aware of that. The qualified bidders have been waiting for this for, I would say, greater than 2 years, and it's finally been released. So that will give us, I think, approximately another 13% of energy on the grid coming from renewables. Our economy is growing through financial services, tourism, and now more recently, medical tourism. There's a strong construction sector with Hyatt Hotel, a large Grand Hyatt being constructed right now, and a number of other smaller projects, including high-end condominiums. And also the public infrastructure projects are ongoing. A lot of roads being built, and a new private terminal is in the works for the Airports Authority under their development plan. I will leave it at that now. Dr. Burton, I'm not sure if there are any questions from the audience.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Yu. Yasmin, should we invite questions after each presentation, or do we wait after to have an overall discussion or question and answers?
We'll have each CEO present, and then we can move into some questions thereafter.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for your guidance. Thank you.
I should also mention that we are 60% owned by Fortis. So we do have a Canadian connection, and we're also publicly traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange. In fact, this year we'll be celebrating 35 years on the Toronto Stock Exchange.
Excellent. No, thank you for that additional information. I think very useful in the context in which we are having this discussion. Yes. With that said, I guess we'll move on to Fortis TCI, operating in the Turks and Caicos Islands. Mrs. Ruth Ghani Forbes, over to you, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Burton. Good
Hi.
morning. Good morning again, everyone.
Go ahead.
First, I will start by saying thank you to the High Commissioner of Canada for selecting me as one of the recipients of the 2025 Women in Energy Awards. I am indeed honored to accept such an award. Getting into the presentation about what's next in the Turks and Caicos Islands, I will just give a snapshot of who we are as Fortis TCI. We are the main provider of energy in the Turks and Caicos Islands. We serve 98% of the islands through 4 independent power plants. We have a customer base of about approximately 18,000 with 102 megawatt of installed diesel capacity and about approximately 4 megawatts of installed solar capacity at the end of the second quarter. Our peak demand averages around 54.1 megawatts. And like many of my peers in the Turks and Caicos Islands, we are experiencing very strong economic growth, which is driving energy demand. We have an estimate GDP growth of 5.6% for 2024. And of course, that's driven by strong performances in the tourism sector. And like the Cayman Islands, we also have a very robust construction sector as well as a real estate market. We have a very strong growth pipeline. The government has estimated an approximate $4 billion worth of projects in the pipeline, and economic growth is reflected that for us translate to approximately 7% increase in electricity sales going forward over the next 4-5 years. The country is seeing a significant uptick in solar PV installation, both on the utility level as well as among businesses and residents. In the Turks and Caicos Islands, we have also taken significant steps within the regulatory space to ensure that supportive legislations are in place for a cost-effective integration of renewable energy. And that is in the form of the draft renewable energy bill that is currently in consultation with the respective stakeholders. So what can we expect in the Turks and Caicos Islands? We expect that growth would remain high over the next 4 to 5 years. In line with that, we expect to have a rising energy demand in the Turks and Caicos Islands as well. For us, on our end, we are also, in terms of energy goals, renewable energy goals, we are working with an integrated resource plan that dictates 33% renewable energy penetration by 2040. And that is in line with our resilient national energy transition strategy. I would say that this is currently up for renewal. We do expect that the optimal mix will change with the different considerations that's taken place since the last plan was done. Our focus here at Fortis TCI is to we're embracing the energy transition and from the perspective that it should be done maintaining the reliability of the grid and also the resiliency of the grid as well, and with in the most cost-effective manner. And I will leave it here until questions are taken. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Forbes. Thank you for that overview. Very informative, insightful. We now move over to Jamaica Public Service Company, Senior Vice President with us for Shared Services, Mr. Rick Case. The floor is yours, sir.
Okay, thank you, and good morning to all my colleagues. I would want to add my own congratulations to the powerful women in energy, Ruth and Nikita. Really love to see things like that. It kind of warms my heart. Good to be here, and I had a lovely time at CanCarib, as you had mentioned, Cletus, and really happy to have shared in that forum. Special morning to colleague CEOs on the call and all the protocols that have been established. I'm recognizing them. What's next for JPS is a big question. Just some stats on JPS. We are currently 102 years old. We are owned by Marubeni from Japan, Korea East West Power, both who have 40% shares each, totaling 80%. The government of Jamaica owns roughly 19.5% of the shares, and we have some private investors who have just under 1% of those shares. We serve a customer base of approximately 700,000 customers. Our last peak demand was 692.5 thereabouts in 2023. We haven't been back to that peak yet. It was driven because it was the hottest year on record. It was primarily driven by heat. Year to date, we are seeing a peak of 670 megawatts. However, our overall energy is trending about 2.5% lower than last year, right? Some of the contributors for this include a perennial problem that we have here in Jamaica, which includes high non-technical losses, but also we have quite a bit of distributed energy in the form of solar PV. In the minority, it is licensed. Some of them are licensed, but in the majority, they are unlicensed systems that are being installed right throughout the country. Our renewable energy penetration now, and I'm saying energy, it's at 11%. The government of Jamaica has a target of 50% by 2030, and there is an integrated resource plan to support that. We are late on the integrated resource plan based on the timelines for the investments and for the commercial operations date of the generators to support those plans. Consequently, you would have staggered retirements now because the integrated resource plan did contemplate retirements in it as well. So we continue with the fuel mix that we have now, particularly because the grid is facing some severe challenges, particularly on the transmission network. We have a very congested network now with lines that pretty much we can't even take those lines out of service for maintenance just based on the power flows at the moment. So we continue on the fuel mix that we have, with the majority being liquefied natural gas, supporting our generation mix in Jamaica. We have a liberated generation market, so JPS does not have the monopoly on generation. So we have a market structure where JPS is the single buyer, and we have power purchase agreements with independent power producers. And we have a very competitive generation market. The government of Jamaica created the generation procurement entity, which is responsible for ensuring that the government policy is achieved through procurements. So they are the ones who go to the market determine the technology. In this case, they would have gone to market for 100 megawatts, which was procured. We have 2 times 50 megawatt of solar that should be coming onto the grid by 2027, as well as they're about to go back to market now for another 100 megawatts of renewable energy. And just based on what we're seeing in the market now, in terms of the prices, solar without batteries seem to be the most competitive option. So we're not seeing where more wind or any other renewable technology is actually coming out on top. So what is actually in the plan is quite a bit of battery energy storage. So over the next 5 years, we should be installing 171 megawatts of battery energy storage system in the first instance, followed by another 115 megawatts of battery energy storage. We're looking at 4-hour batteries to be strategically placed throughout the grid to ensure that we have maximum stability. Of course, with that, all the grid management technologies to support the distributed energy investments in distributed energy resource management systems, and all of those things are being contemplated at the moment. So I'd probably leave it there, Cletus, and then pick up with anything else during the questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rick. Very informative. And finally, in the first round, Mrs. Tony Seymour from the Bahamas, representing Bahamas Power and Light. Please share with us your overview, and then we will open up for questions and discussions. Thank you.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. Congratulations, Ms. Mullings and Ms. Forbes, on your honor. Very proud to be in your company today. So for the Bahamas, the government of the Bahamas has recently signed a number of PPA agreements for solar and battery energy storage throughout all of the islands. We are an island nation, so BPL currently operates 29 power stations on 17 of the inhabited islands, with the exception of Grand Bahama. That does create a bit of a challenge for us, logistics-wise, maintenance-wise, etc. There's a lot of duplication of efforts. So the plan moving forward is firstly the introduction of LNG, which should be available in New Providence before the end of this year. We do have an independent power producer on the island that operates gas turbines now currently being run on diesel. The transition to LNG is being put in place to kind of minimize our reliance on fossil fuels. We currently burn heavy fuel oil and diesel oil, and to reduce our overall cost of electricity to our consumers. The transition to renewables, the push is 30% renewable integration by 2030. We do currently have a 27 megawatt hour battery energy storage system that's in use in New Providence for grid smoothing and stability, reduce spinning reserve. However, once the solar plants start to come online, they will be expected to have their own battery energy storage systems installed, and those power purchase agreements would supply energy to BPL. We'd pass the savings on to the customer. The government of the Bahamas has also passed the LNG Act, and there is a push to try and reduce the cost of electricity to consumers. And because we're spread out over so many different islands, that's kind of difficult to do, because we do charge the same rate to all of our customers, regardless of the population of that island. So our largest island, for example, has about 70% of our customers. The remaining 30% are spread over the other 16 islands, and our smallest island has a grand total of 10 customers. But we are expected to provide the same level of service to all of our customers, whether they are 10 or 90,000. And they all pay the same rate of electricity. In terms of our plans for resilience and the integration of renewables, the distributed energy system that we've learned after major storms works better for us, especially on some of the islands where the population is spread out over long distances. So smaller distributed energy to one part of the island, or maybe a smaller key, rather than having a centralized generating plant. We found that that has worked better for us after major storms. And so that's one of the things we're considering as we're moving forward with the unpredictability of climate change and the like. And in addition to less reliance on fossil fuels and to reducing our carbon footprint. So I'm open for questions, but that's where we are in a synopsis and where we're going.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mrs. Seymour. And with this first round of this first overview round from the CEOs and leaders of the utilities in the Northern Caribbean, I would now, Yasmin, like to open up for any initial questions from the delegates, participants, before we get into another round from the panel.
Yes, and just let me say at this point, Dr. Burton, that Mrs. Seymour was an earlier recipient of Canada's Women in Energy Award. She was awarded in February of this year.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for that update. Commendations, congratulations to Mrs. Seymour on receiving the award earlier this year, and also to the current recipients. Okay, so I see a question in the chat. I was just wondering what other measures are being considered. Other measures with respect to anything exactly? Ms. Ali, other measures in terms of grid expansion, grid stability, investments, what measures in terms of?
I was just wondering, because the islands are subject to hurricanes and climate change is supposed to make some of those become more intense. How resilient, like, I mean, I see a lot of solar being installed, which is great, but I was just wondering what about the resiliency for when these big hurricanes hit? Like, I remember Puerto Rico being out of power for a long time because the renewables got knocked out. So, and Texas, when it was freezing, you know, the renewables didn't work. So I was just wondering, like, in your integrated planning, like, how are you addressing these risks?
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that question and subsequent clarification. We could go again in alphabetical order because I'm sure everyone on the panel would have something to say on this question. It's a very critical consideration. Thank you. Richard?
Yes, I think the region has ample experience now with hurricane force winds and utility scale solar. I think it was RMI maybe that had a study that they put out after the 2017 storms.
Yeah.
CUC itself is preparing its bid for the 22.5 megawatt solar here, and we're certainly looking at having our solar farm be, able to withstand major hurricane force winds. What the experience has been really that you tend to have the outer panels that are lost, but it's not a total loss. And as far as the rooftop solar go, obviously we don't have a lot of control over that as a utility. And at this point, I'm not sure that our planning code, we have very strong building codes. So all of the rooftop solar on the island has to be inspected by the building control unit before they can connect into the grid. Obviously, like every other country, there are people who do things on their own, but we don't see prevalence of that here. Most of these rooftop solar panels are inspected by the government building control unit. But I would expect that, being on top of roofs and exposed, we would have a lot of loss there, but we are not relying on those solar panels for capacity in any way. It's energy only. So as a utility, we would not be concerned about that loss.
Excellent. Thank you, Richard. Rick?
Okay. All right. So that was a good question. We do not use, and just like what Richard said, we do not use the renewable sources of energy as part of our grid resilience, and especially restoring after a storm. The intermittent nature of the renewable energy makes it unsuitable for grid restoration. You need good capacity, dependable capacity in order to be able to do that. As it relates to the challenges that it might pose, on the consumer side, unlike in Cayman where they have a good high level of compliance with inspections and all of those things, right? Because we have a proliferation of unlicensed systems in Jamaica, it's hard for the utility to say, and even for other agencies, for example, insurance companies and whatnot, to say what the state of those installations are, but we would not necessarily depend on them. For the ones that are inspected, it would basically have to pass the hurricane straps, meet the minimum resilient construction for it. I can say that even with Hurricane Beryl, which was the most recent one that we've had since we have had grid scale solar installations, we did not see any major damage or maybe just superficial damage to any one of the two major solar farms that we have here on the island. So as far as it being resilient is concerned, the lessons learned earlier from the ones, I guess the first most, we kind of learn from that. So we would have had a much more resilient infrastructure than what would have happened in Puerto Rico or so, with proper hurricane straps and things of that nature going forward. So I don't see us having the risk for grid resilience where solar is concerned.
Thank you, Rick. And apologies, Mrs. Forbes, I skipped you in alphabetical order. Please go on.
That's okay. Similar scenario here in Turks and Caicos. In fact, we have a long-standing rooftop solar program, and in 2017, when we experienced two major catastrophic hurricanes, Irma and Maria, we had minimal damages to the existing rooftop systems, as well as the systems that were within our environment. So we built to Category 5 hurricane standards. We have, like Richard, very strong planning codes that has to be complied with. On the Fortis TCI side, we have very strong internal inspection programs, pre-storm inspection programs, as well as various connections with the particular vendors. So we have a full taking the lessons learned that we would have gathered over the last few years, and particularly the 2017 storm. We have a pretty good hold on that. But like my other two colleagues said, we don't have we have pretty strong coding laws, so that helps as well.
Thank you. And Mrs. Seymour?
Yes, so similar to what my colleagues have mentioned, we're currently doing our environmental impact assessment. So where these solar farms are placed is very important, non-flooding areas, and then as Ms. Forbes mentioned, building to Category 5 hurricane standards. Those are the types of things that we are trying to mitigate against as we roll out our solar installations across the islands.
And we're not hearing. Mrs. Seymour, you broke up on the last sentence. Could you just repeat? I think your connection dropped.
Oh, sorry about that. Yes, so we are conducting environmental impact assessments for the locations of all of the solar farms to make sure that they're in non-flood areas and building the farms to withstand Category 5 storms. So those are some of the considerations that we're looking at as we roll out the installation across the various islands. Can you hear me?
Yes, there's a bit of static, but I think we got you towards the end.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
So thanks everyone for those answers. I appreciate it.
Okay, and if I could just mention from the association standpoint, CARILEC as a regional association made up of 32 member utilities, IPPs, associate members, now individual members. We also have a very robust program for disaster management. You might have heard of the CDAP, the CARILEC Disaster Assistance Program. Not only does it activate post-disaster restoration on a mutual assistance basis among participating members, we have 27 participating member utilities as part of that program for over 2 decades now. The last deployment post-burial saw over 100 line workers, interestingly made up of about 25% of these were private line worker contractors, being deployed to Jamaica and the Grenadines for post-disaster restoration support, with very strong and commendable support from the other member utilities, again on a mutual assistance basis, which essentially means that the wage costs of those line workers providing assistance are met by the assisting member utilities, and the cost associated with travel and logistics is met from the fund, the pool of fund that CARILEC manages, and accommodation and ground transportation would be met by the utility being assisted in the particular instance. So the CDAP is a very successful flagship program that we've had over 2 decades. We are now with funding support from the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. CARILEC received the award at the last COP session in the region of $750 million to set up a mechanism for expanding the CDAP to include materials and equipment sharing. So we're about to embark on that program on a pilot basis with about 11 participating utilities, 4 of them being funded under the support from the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. And that organization, by the way, may not be familiar to some of us. It wasn't to me before we applied for the grant funding. It's really an international association of 39 member countries, ranging from Brazil, Canada is included, France, Germany, United Kingdom, United States, and some developing countries as well. And also 8 organizations form part of this Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, CDRI, the Asia Development Bank, the World Bank Group, the UNDP, the European Union, the European Investment Bank, are all member organizations of the CDRI, from which CARILEC received funding to expand the CDAP initiative to include material sharing, a pool procurement initiative, a virtual warehousing and stockpiling arrangements and mechanism, which would basically augment, supplement the manpower mutual assistance program that we have ongoing within the CARILEC Association. So we are also being proactive in that regard. One of the first outputs of this project is actually, we'll be looking at the preparation and upgrading of disaster response plans and business continuity plans for member utilities participating in the project. So we're also looking at proactively how we prepare better for disasters. So DRPs, disaster response plans, and business continuity plans will be prepared and updated for member utilities. And finally, I should just say that CARILEC's approach or perspective on disaster and resilience building, we often promote a multi-layered and multi-sectoral approach to an increasingly multi-hazard environment. And what we mean by that is that as a region, to become more resilient, it can't just be at one level or one sector. As you've heard from the various CEOs, they are building codes, construction standards that have to be met for this to all make sense in the bigger picture. So multi-sectoral, meaning not just the electric utility sector, but the telecom sector, the water sector, the public sector, the engineering association, the construction sector. All these sectors must work together to increase resilience, multifaceted approach, and multi-layered, meaning from the individual, household, community, organization, national, regional level must all look at the hazards and see how we have effective responses at all levels so that we could truly build resilience, not just in the energy sector, which is critically important, but also at all levels within the sector and beyond. So that's what CARILEC's position has been as it relates to disaster resilience, building resilience in the sector from an association standpoint. So thank you so much for that question, and looking forward to further engagement with you as we move forward. Any other questions before we ask the panelists to give us a few thoughts on what keeps them up at night? Just a burning thought. I'm not advocating that any of you lose sleep over work, right? But I'll ask it not literally, but figuratively. What keeps you up at night? What really is your main challenge that is bothersome to you? Maybe we could go back around the circle with Richard and then maybe I would say close off with any final questions or comments. Yasmin? So sorry, Richard.
Certainly, yes.
Okay, great. Yes. What keeps you up at night?
Well, I don't have young kids, so I'm past that stage. But yeah, I think here for all utility people in the region, the hurricanes, obviously it's hurricane season now, so we keep our eyes on the Atlantic and see what's brewing there. You know, and we do the best we can to have you know, sort of resilient T&D standards. We're doing a lot of undergrounding of our transmission system right now. We have indoor substations that have proven to withstand Category 5 in Hurricane Ivan. So we're doing a lot of work, but obviously it's very expensive and it takes time. We're doing a bit each year, so maybe in the next 10 years or so, we'll have a pretty impregnable system. The other thing that keeps me up at night is obviously we have a high cost of energy in the region. We have been desperately since the 2019, I think, trying to move towards a system of more solar plus storage to bring the cost of energy down on the grid and to get off of that diesel roller coaster. You know, as we always say here in the region, one shot is fired in the Far East, in the Middle East, and you know, there goes the price of diesel again, which our customers, you know, and the company is on this diesel roller coaster. So trying to get alignment between the regulator and government and the utility and agree on a plan and way forward and to move expeditiously. For me, not looking back, but you know, we have lost, I would say, 4 years here, 4 or 5 years here in Cayman. We've gone through a period when the cost of capital was much lower. We went through a period where, you know, we weren't concerned about tariffs, et cetera, et cetera. In my estimation, we should already be at about 40%, 30 to 40% energy coming from solar. So what keeps me up at night is, will the future be like the past, and will we move slowly, or will we be able to get alignment with all of the key stakeholders in the country to move forward and get more renewable energy on the grid?
Thank you. Thank you. Mrs. Forbes?
Yep. Thank you for that. That's always the question. um, for me, given where we are with the rapid growth and the rising demand, reliability is one of the things that that really is top of mind for me. In consideration with the shifting realities of climate change, at the end of the day, our customers, trust us to deliver, and every second matters. But it's for those who have been to Turks and Caicos, you drive around and you see the level of growth that we have to contend with, and just with the transition of the energy sector, the regulatory environment keeping pace with the level of growth and the transition. So that's one of the things. And then also the resiliency side of it, as Richard mentioned, we're in the hurricane season. So we obviously have to ensure that our infrastructure is up to par to withstand these storms and be in a position to recover in the event that something happens. And then we also have top of mind for us is, how do we balance affordability with the investments that we have to make in order for the system to be reliable, resilient, and the sustainability commitments that we have. The reliability aspect of that is also top of mind for me when we talk about modernizing the grid and integrating renewable energies. That's a key factor for us. And then finally, are we truly building a future that is sustainable? Are we doing all that can be done? And this is beyond Fortis TCI, but as a collective, are we truly building a sustainable future, not just investing in technology, but also our people, our local talent, and the shared vision for long-term prosperity. So those are some of the things that's top of mind for me.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mrs. Forbes. Rick, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. For those who know me, I sleep very well, very little things.
Because you run so much.
Yes, yes. So I go to my bed very early. I wake up very early, and but seriously, on the utility side, I think the burden that we have is improving our safety culture and getting the safety message right across the organization. Very important that no one gets hurt, and not just internal for us, but more in our model. We have a lot of third-party contractors who provide services for us, and we are seeing where the safety statistics is more on that side rather than on the inside. So the safety culture definitely, and the attitude to work and adapting safety as a core value is something that for me is a burden. I think we have tremendously improved our reliability. Beryl taught us that the customer has a very small appetite for long duration outages, right? Even after a category 4 storm where the country appears to be devastated, people want power back by the following day. And that's the reality that we're in now. So that's both a challenge and an opportunity, right? But one of the things that contributed significantly to a lot of our outages was vegetation. So vegetation was like 30% of our outages on the system, right? And we have put in a strong vegetation management program to improve the reliability of our services. And now we have seen that number drop to 15%, and we expect it to drop even more while we complete the program over the end of the year. So we're returning our corridors back to regulation. It's a tough task because when you allow something to have gone array for so many years, it kind of becomes the norm. And of course, you're gonna have pushback from residents and whatnot. But so it's a work in progress. So we are seeing the benefits of our vegetation management program. Just like Richard, I really envy what they have done in terms of moving their transmission and the circuits underground, indoor substations. For us with our high energy costs, how do you put resilience and get resilience on top of already high energy costs in a regulated market where, and a politically sensitive environment is a tough equation to solve. So getting alignment around the future of energy, I think, is one of the things that would definitely keep us up. Some of those things Cletus I kind of spoke of in the keynote address.
Yeah.
And what really is it that we're solving for? Is it that we're solving for lower energy prices? Some of the things that we're doing not necessarily gonna redound to having lower prices of energy. And of course, the recent announcement by the minister, the government of Jamaica, I should say, doesn't help the situation. It becomes even more difficult, a difficult operating environment, especially in the short term, right? So the last thing I would say is that we're very late in the implementation of our integrated resource plan. Some of these investments and things should have been on the grid already to resolve some of the issues that we're now facing. And the longer it takes, the more expensive it is. The cost of capital is increasing, and the more difficult it is to get in the queue as well for some of these solar investments, some of these battery energy storage systems, where we're competing now against you would say the hyperscalers and the GPUs that are actually competing against Amazon and those people now who are putting up large power systems and have a whole lot of money. They're gonna skip the line ahead of small utilities like us who have modest battery energy storage systems that we're looking to implement. So the whole environment, the longer we take, the longer it's gonna take to hop on the bus and get our projects going, and it's gonna be more expensive for us. So importantly for you and for Carolec is to kind of create the economies of scale to ensure that we can basically have a bigger visibility in the region and skip some of these lines as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rick. Mrs. Seymour, over to you. What keeps you up at night?
The good thing about going last is everything's already been said.
Yes.
One of the major things for me is the logistics of operating 29 power stations on 17 different islands. So that is a challenge within itself, to provide the same level of service and reliability. One of the things that keeps me up at night is anytime there's a storm traveling that is threatening the Bahamas, more than likely one of the islands that we cover may be impacted. Trying to get the same level of resilience and reliability across all of the islands is also a challenge. Ensuring the sufficient fuel supplies on all of the islands, storm preparation on 17 islands, vegetation management, that sort of thing. Those are all things that not necessarily keep me up at night, but are always at the forefront of my mind. In addition to that, one of the challenges we have as JPS mentioned, Mr. Case mentioned, sorry, is safety. So we have certain safety standards on the larger islands, but we do have islands where there's only one employee, which is not ideal because they're working alone most of the time. And then the level of healthcare accessibility on some of the islands is not the same as it would be in New Providence or in Grand Bahama, for example. So those having systems in place in the event that there is an injury on some of our remote islands, what is the contingency plan for getting that person to adequate health care in the shortest possible time? So those are some of the things that that kind of concern me, in addition to, you know, storm preparation, obviously, reliability, availability, cost of service. How can we reduce our capital costs while improving the quality of our service? Those types of things are always at the forefront of my mind.
Oh. Again, we lost you towards the end, Mrs. Seymour.
Oh, no, I said balancing the cost of capital, the capital costs for new projects, for improvement, system improvements and upgrades, while also managing the cost of electricity to our consumers. You know, all of our customers expect affordable electricity that's on all the time. You know, they have a very low tolerance for disruptions, but at the same time, you know, keeping the rates low and doing the necessary infrastructural upgrades is a delicate balance. So managing the customer expectations and then trying to cut back on capital costs is always at the forefront of my mind as well. You still
No, it
You're
just
not
went for a
hearing me?
bit. No, just for a bit. It just broke up
No,
for a
man,
few
no,
seconds.
I think it's you, Cletus. I heard everything she said. So she has never broken
Thank
up.
you.
Oh my goodness. Oh, thank you, Rick. Thank you, Rick.
Never broken.
Well,
And I think Richard wants to say something.
yes, well, you know where I am still, and the internet service there was not that reliable. I'm still at the conference in Miami and doing this from the hotel room. So yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Burton, when it comes to safety, and I think I can speak for Ruth on this as well, but as part of for this organization, safety is the number one focus. So what you get, I'm going to touch on another subject, which is having pedigree operators and investors in our region. It is needed, and but there's a quid pro quo. To me, the governments and the regulators need to understand the industry and understand what pedigree investors bring. And certainly we have experienced it at CUC, and I think I can speak for Ruth as well, that the benchmark in the best practices, the focus, the culture of operating a world-class utility is brought by these pedigree investors. And I think and I've fought this fight for many years in Carolec. I think this is something that we don't value enough in the region, because it is a very capital-intensive industry, and we need to get least cost capital, and that comes with pedigree investors, and also the operating experience of a company, an investor who has run world-class utilities in the past. We cannot underestimate the value that brings to the region.
Brilliant.
I endorse this message.
Yes. Very good. Thank you. There's a question in the chat. Big tech like Amazon, Google, Microsoft have invested lots of money in small modular reactor technology. The question is this something Caribbean islands would consider for the early 2030s working together?
I think JPS is a leader in this right now, or at least Jamaica is, but just to quickly say that we have been following this technology for decades, because we do believe it could be clean base load technology for our small isolated systems. However, currently our electricity law says that there shall be no nuclear generation. So that would have to be changed. But I think it has to be a part of the energy portfolio going forward if we're going to decarbonize.
Okay. Thank you.
I would agree with you to some extent, Richard. We don't have a restriction on our law. Our integrated resource plan did not contemplate renewable energy, but there's strong, nuclear energy, but there's strong discussions going on now as it relates to these SMRs being a part of the clean energy future, right? I think as a utility, we're kind of agnostic as it relates to what the best technology is. We have a government procurement entity that is responsible for the procurement of any generation coming to the grid. So they are the ones who kind of follow the government policy with what has to happen. But as a utility itself, we're agnostic. We have done several studies where we would have simulated what the grid would look like with different shares of nuclear energy as your base load. And technically it looks good. Economically, it's a different scenario. But over a longer horizon, going beyond the normal planning window, it's economically preferred.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that question, Ms. Ali. Any other questions, please, from the participants, delegates?
Dr. Burton, I think we should look at rounding up this session now so that we can get the climate financing
Okay. So
panel in.
are we past the time? What was the?
Yes, we're past the time.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
That's okay.
let's then move straight into the climate finance, and I take it there is it a different panel or different focus?
Right. So we have representatives from Export Development Canada. We have another representative from the Canadian Commercial Corporation, and also our very own climate financing trade commissioner from Global Affairs Canada.
Brilliant. I see that on the agenda. Thank you so much. That was like 15 minutes ago. Right. Okay. Apologies, and handing back over to you, Yasmin.
Okay, so now we'll move on to the climate financing section of this webinar. I'm now going to invite Danielle Bermudez. Wilson Pierce from the Canadian Commercial Corporation, and my own colleague, Fahim Noor Ali. Okay. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for agreeing to participate in today's webinar. This is an important part, an important subject for companies involved in the energy sector, and in particular in Canada's energy sector. And I would like if each of you would just make a comment on the whole business of climate financing, and especially where it concerns our Canadian companies who are looking to do business or continue to do business internationally, and particularly in the Caribbean region. So why don't we start with Danielle from Export Development Corporation. Danielle, thank you for being here again today.
It's my pleasure, Jasmine. Thank you so much for inviting me. A big thank you as well to the embassy for the reach out. Always a pleasure to connect with different partners in market. To jump straight to your question, Jasmine, I believe a couple of things have been happening worldwide that everybody obviously knows, that is creating an environment of a lot of uncertainty, but with that comes a lot of opportunities. So Canada finally has understood that they cannot place most of their eggs in one basket, and that basket being the United States. And now, as a country, we are working together on our trade diversification strategy to, promote more Canadian commerce internationally. From the region we cover, from our Bogota office, which is the Andean, Central American, the Caribbean market, we are actively pursuing new businesses in the region, supporting Canadian companies in the region. So we're very open to doing more, obviously on sectors that align with our own strategies. Um, Advanced manufacturing, clean tech, critical minerals. So whenever there's Canadian content involved, we obviously would like to understand what the project is about and how we, through our financial resources and our financial solutions, can support Canadian companies capitalize on these opportunities. It can be, with direct government to government discussions, or private. So from our side, very open to the market. And the Caribbean is a very, I might say, calm region. If you compare it to the other places where we operate, or the different countries where we actually cover from the Bogota office. So it's a region that we are very open to doing business, no matter if it's in Jamaica, Turks and Caicos, the Dominican Republic, Aruba. So there's a lot of opportunities that we want to help with. So hopefully, there can be much more coming to the pipeline, and happy to discuss any opportunities that through the Team Canada approach we can support.
Thank you so much, Daniel. And of course, you've had some experience a few years back in Jamaica with various infrastructure type projects here in Jamaica. And we certainly look forward to continue supporting EDC in its efforts to provide the financial support that many Canadian companies can and do need to carry out their projects internationally. Okay, so let's now move on to the Canadian Commercial Corporation, because I think this organization represented today by Wilson Pierce is critical to investment opportunities here in the Caribbean. So Wilson, I'm going to ask you to just give an overview of the Canadian Commercial Corporation and some of what you do and some of the projects that you have certainly delivered here in the Caribbean.
Sure. Thanks again, Yasmin. And yeah, I'd be happy to. I think in the time that we've got, probably what I'll do is I'll focus a little bit on what we do for those of you in the audience who are trying to understand the various three other acronyms that are on the call. And then specifically our angle into the clean energy discussion. So CCC is a Crown corporation. It's owned by the Government of Canada. And we focus on, we have a mechanism that allows you to procure, contract for, and manage government-to-government transactions. And we currently do government-to-government transactions. We're managing around $15 billion a year in G2G transactions across the aerospace and defense, infrastructure, and clean energy sector. And those, this mechanism is designed to allow Canadian companies to engage directly with end users who are ultimately a government agency of some sort. And it provides a mechanism for de-risking the procurement and contracting and contract management process. And in de-risking those processes, it tends to reduce the cost of money and the risk premiums associated with that. We are not, we're the only ones on the call, we're not a financing agency, but we have an impact on the financing. Within the clean energy sector itself, we're focused on baseload solutions. So we're not really focused on intermittent, because quite often that's not a G2G play anyway. As most of the utility operators will say, private sector guy invests, and the utility is the off-taker through PPAs. So we're doing baseload solutions and grid stability solutions. We're engaged in and discussing projects in the following areas: geothermal, smart utilities, and by smart utilities, I'm talking about anything from smart metering right through to grid stabilization technology, things like that. Energy storage, which often comes part and parcel with the intermittent. Waste to energy, which is a bit of a mix because there's a lot of PPA in that world as well. Hydro revitalization, so people who are upgrading their existing hydro investments. And then finally, nuclear. Nuclear in particular, some of you may know we're involved in the refurbishments of the programs in Romania and a number of other areas where the CANDU reactor is predominant as Canadian technology. But we're also supporting nuclear refurbishments in other areas as well because of our ability to provide that comfort and confidence around the performance guarantee that we give on the contract. Because ultimately what we're delivering for foreign buyers is when you're making that large investment, we provide a performance guarantee on the contract. We say this will be delivered according to the terms and conditions of the contract. Within the Caribbean region, we're looking at a number of different projects. We've been approached on projects on battery energy storage, on waste to energy, on SMRs. You know, there has been some interest in SMRs. Our utility discussions, just to close on that, and the utility, because of the nature of the other panelists, I recognize that a lot of the energy companies, at least half, right, are privately operated, owned, or controlled in some fashion. So our engagement in the energy sector is a little different in terms of where we engage, but we're also fairly heavily engaged with water utilities because, you know, as I often joke with them, they're energy companies in disguise, given the demand that they place on the grid. So I think I'll stop there just in the interest of time, and we'll let Fahim step in.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Wilson. And we'll come back to the relationship between all of these agencies shortly.
Great.
So Fahim, my colleague who is actually in Washington, D.C., so he's in the center of this whole climate conversation. So Fahim, over to you to just give us a brief overview of what the climate financing team in Global Affairs Canada does.
Sure. No, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity for this. Basically, as a climate finance trade commissioner for the Americas and the Caribbean, I focus on business development for Canadian companies looking to do work in the region, looking at climate finance opportunities, largely through working with the multilateral development banks. So, which is why my position is here in Washington, and so I sit closely with the World Bank Group and the Inter-American Development Bank and other agencies and private funders that are really interested in looking at Latin America and the Caribbean. In the interest of time, I'm just going to sort of go into some of the top topics that I sort of come across with the clients, and I just prepared one slide so I can share that really quickly as to what climate finance isn't. I think that might be helpful in this context. So I think what I wanted to sort of focus on, as I said, was what is and what isn't climate finance. And hopefully you can see the slide right now. But I wanted to sort of look at climate finance and dispel the notion that climate finance isn't necessarily concessional finance. Climate finance is traditional finance with some sort of concessionality when there are climate targets and objectives that are reached. So, you know, when you look at blended finance as an instrument, which is an instrument where a lot of much of the Canadian funding goes into for climate finance, whether it's with IFC or IDB or other organizations, it really kind of discounts your commercial rate to maybe 200 basis points approximately. So it's not heavily concessional, and that's on purpose because the principles dictate that, you know, financing should still go into viable projects that are investable, but are just not quite at that at that point. And Caribbean, I think, is a very good case example where, we have a number of really impactful climate projects that just for some reason or the other, maybe it's overpricing the risk or other sort of factors that are not quite investable. So the blended finance and the innovative finance sort of instruments kind of gives that push. And then the second thing I wanted to say is that, we all know that $5.3 billion from the Canadian government has gone into climate finance. But I wanted to emphasize that this goes through intermediaries and it doesn't go directly. You can't apply as a company directly to the government of Canada for climate financing. And partly that is because the government relies on local expertise and local knowledge on how to do this. And, we have crown corporations that can take direct equity and debt stakes into companies, like we have EDC that sort of, as you've seen, has their instruments. FinDev Canada also takes direct investments as a development bank. So the reason I created this image through one of the AI tools, but just to illustrate the fact that the Canadian climate finance is there and it's effective, and there are priorities around climate and the feminist agenda, but this is something that's negotiated with IFC, with IDB Invest, and others to make sure that this climate finance is effectively being used. So, I don't want to go into too much detail beyond that, but I thought I really want to emphasize those 2 points from the Government of Canada perspective as to what climate finance is and is not, and looking forward to the discussion.
Okay, great. So in terms of climate financing, I know that certainly here in Jamaica, and I believe there may be a bit of it too in the Bahamas, where some of those Canadian blended funds that were at the IFC for sure were used in the reconstruction and implementation of their airport reform program in both countries, in both Jamaica and in the Bahamas. So that's a concrete example of how these funds can be used. And you're quite correct, because the IFC is, might I say, the major deliverer of these blended funds throughout this region. So Daniel, and I'm throwing this question out to Daniel and to Wilson to see how, if any way possible, for both an EDC, CCC solution can be used to support Canadian companies in their bid to either invest overseas or to support any opportunity in the region which they might have been successful at receiving.
Sure. Should I start, Daniel, or yeah?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Wilson. Yep.
Yeah, CCC does. In some ways, CCC is financially agnostic in that quite often, as we enter a transaction, the financial arrangements are already in place, and so we're just aligning them to the contract. But in many cases, we're partnered quite closely with Export Development Corp, because we're sister Crown Corps. We're literally down the street from each other in Ottawa. And there are a number of transactions. I mean, two of the bigger ones that are well known would be the nuclear in Romania and the sale of water bombers to Europe. But reaching back a little into the region, the smart utility project in Barbados was one where CCC was the prime contractor, and EDC stepped in with some reinsurance product around a Citibank facility that was established there. So we do tend to work very closely together. Once the project reaches a certain profile, it's really helpful to have both parties in there and lobbying on behalf of the project, both in its formation and then through the life of the project. Things always change, And so in managing those changes, it's been very useful to have both parties at the table.
I would add to what Wilson just mentioned that it's always important for our organizations to take that Team Canada approach, because tackling the different projects and showcasing to the governments or to the private sector the strength of Canada as a country, where we can not only introduce how we can structure things through the different organizations like the CCC, EDC, obviously the Trade Commissioner Services, but the more we can introduce to the to a client, the more likely that the Canadian country is going to win that contract. And because we're competing as well with other ECAs and with other countries, with other nations. So just to complement what Wilson was mentioning, our approach is going to be always, how we can together, win this contract. What is the Canadian content we are working on? For example, in Peru, we are actually right now actively pursuing a couple of infra projects with the government, where the CCC is involved, of course. We have the ACONs, the Hatch, WSPs in constant communication with the team in order for us to provide and fill the gaps that the project has. And as Wilson mentioned, it's not only at the beginning of the project that we're trying to structure what's the best approach to it, but it's going to be a long process. Things change, governments change. So I would just say that the more organizations are linked, and we work hand in hand with the CCC in many of the projects, because it also gives a lot of certainty to Canadian companies, having that CCC being the main contractor and signature for the main projects in the region. The more likely is it going to be that we bring the contract back home. And it's always a nice approach to include as many partners as possible to the conversations. And again, I want to reiterate that the Team Canada approach is the winning method for any opportunity that we want to pursue as a country, and as obviously as representatives of the Canadian government. You're on mute.
And on that point, Danielle, I want to just ask both of you again to comment on the G2G, the government to government kind of arrangements that both your organizations can and have and do offer. Wilson, you want to go first, because yours is a bit more current here, right, certainly in the Caribbean.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So to reiterate or to drill into the mechanism itself, what CCC will do, about just over 50% of our contracts are the result of an exporter speaking to us, and about 30% of our contracts are the result of a buyer speaking to us, and the other 20% is a mix. But what happens in all those cases is we do a due diligence on the Canadian exporter to ensure they have the managerial, technical, and financial ability to deliver on the project that's being proposed. But more importantly, we also provide a mechanism through the G2G process to allow you to shape and define that project. So we don't work well in a situation where it's just an RFP. Like if you're ordering pencils or valves, we're not the people to bring to the table. But if you're trying to design a solution that requires an interaction with your potential supplier in what feels like a more traditionally commercial engagement, that's where we tend to step in. We provide that safe place to design the program, and we only go forward if the program makes commercial sense, which is where we then come back and we step in and we look at the financing options and the reinsurance and the terms and conditions and tenor to bring a full package. But certainly within the Caribbean region, there are a handful, as I said, there's a handful of opportunities in the geothermal, smart utility, energy storage, and waste energy discussion spaces that I think that mechanism could be brought to bear, because they're all for projects that you're not replacing valves. You're actually, there's some design process and it's a bit fluid still. So.
Correct. Yeah.
Yes, and
Daniel.
yeah, from our side, I believe on many occasions the discussions we have with the local customers, the local buyers, might be private or public sector, is okay. So if I manage to hire Canadian content, what's in it for me? Like, how can you support me financially so that we can carry on the project? And that's where EDC comes. So on many occasions, we see it at a government level on the many countries we cover. There's a lot of projects in the pipeline. They have a beautiful pipeline, but it's very difficult to execute because there's no funds. And that's where we come in and we say, okay, the more content you hire from Canada, the more EDC team can support financially those projects, either through a direct lend or participating through a syndication if there's other financial institutions participating. But if it's a specific project and we can bring on our project finance team, we can go up to 5 times the amount of contract value that is being given to the Canadian consortium. So if it's $100 million, we can go up to $500 million. So that alleviates a bit of the burden that the client has when pursuing and obviously executing and implementing a project. And again, we can do it through direct lend, but we also have a guarantee program. We have a sovereign guarantee program that can cover up to 100% of the value of what's required. And we usually work with financial partners. It might be Canadian, like Scotiabank, Bank of Montreal, CIBC, but it can be also local banks where we deliver the sovereign guarantee. The partnering bank provides the funds, and obviously with our own AAA support as an institution. So there's many ways that we can organize how we support these projects, G2G projects. But again, whenever we work with CCC, who's the signature of the final signatee of the project, it's part of that consortium that we want to work with, and the more Canadian content, the more resources we can deliver.
And Daniel, on that score, I wanted to ask a question, and it is with regards to, as you have heard this morning, all our CEOs from around the region spoke about the hurricane season. Now, I know that in the past, EDC has had a couple lines of credit to the Jamaica Public Service. So Rick, this concerns your organization. And I just wanted to find out if those kinds of facilities are still available to countries like Jamaica, like the Turks and Caicos, like the Bahamas, and the Cayman Islands for those kinds of facilities, because that line of credit that was established with JPS was to do just that, to procure equipment that would be necessary during a disaster period. And as usual, those I think of transformers, for example. And those transformers were bought from a Canadian company. So if you could just give us a very short response to whether or not that facility still exists.
Of course, it will depend on the amounts of the contract. But again, if it's smaller amounts, up to $25-30 million, we have a specific financial product called Buyer Finance Guarantee, for example, where if there's a Canadian company involved who is delivering products or services to a specific project or situation, for example, in Jamaica, the counterparty or the end consumer or the end client can receive the funds via the guarantee. Again, it's very similar to the sovereign guarantee, where we partner with a financial institution, a partner. They deliver the funds to the local client, the Jamaican client, in order for them to purchase the product or service from the Canadian entity, and with that, the Canadian entity can alleviate working capital to allocate to the specific project. So we do have a couple of products that could work on that specific scenario. Obviously, it's going to be case to case, and we have to discuss details. But yes, like in short, we are able to do so.
Okay, great. Fahim, I want to come back to you, and I know companies are already asking. So, can you give us some examples of Canadian companies that, through the Trade Commissioner Service, and our support in terms of providing them with information on these tools, these funds, these facilities that are available? Could you just give us a couple of actual examples of companies that have used climate funds in projects that you might be aware of?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can just sort of vaguely, because I don't know what the disclosure rules are with accessing funds or not. But I mean, there
no
are
names, Fahim, no names of
names.
the companies, just
Yeah.
just like an energy project, something to that effect.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a company that out of Quebec that it's not necessarily in the energy sector, but they are raising they're raising a fund. And they have we're working with them to recruit LPs into this fund for nature-based solutions, and so have forwarded on their deck to companies, institutions like IFC, IDB, and FMO, and others. Within the energy sector, in the past, we had supported a company that was looking to develop a solar project in the region, and had provided them with a warm introduction to the right people at IFC for to develop this project. I don't think the project ended up panning out, but that's sort of those are examples of services where we've provided support to them. Previously, during the pandemic, it was really about information and knowledge sharing and knowledge transfer. And so a lot of what we had done, we had started temporarily had done a podcast, and so pushed out content and through interviews with different representatives from the different institutions, including EDC and CCC out to our Canadian clients as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. I am not seeing any questions in the chat, but I would encourage all the Canadian companies to get in touch.
Can I just go back to a previous point that I
Sure.
just wanted to emphasize?
Sure.
The Team Canada approach is really important, and from our perspective of Global Affairs Canada, the Canadian aid is untied, right? So we can't show a preference or tell the banks to show a preference toward our Canadian companies just out of a policy. But this is where organizations like CCC and EDC can really excel, and I really sort of promote the fact that working with EDC and CCC as alternatives to perhaps MIGA, or partnering with MIGA and others when looking at guarantees, I think is really, really important for Canadian companies, because these are crown corporations that are really at service for the Canadian companies. So from the global affairs perspective, this is something that we really want to promote.
Mm-hmm. No,
Thank
thanks.
you so much. And Wilson?
Yeah, I was going to pick up on that actually a little bit, because one of the things that I think an area for confusion in climate finance, in the climate finance discussion, is when do you go where for climate finance? And I can't speak to the broader environment. I know a lot of the multilateral funds are in the preparatory stages or in the study stages and things like that. But what I've often had to tell Canadian exporters and buyers is, specific and selfishly to when do you need CCC involved in the equation. Generally, it's going to be a project that has a commercial ROI of some sort. And what you're really doing is you're managing the risks around delivery, the risks around timing, the risks around procurement. So if you think you've got something that has a potential ROI, but you want to manage your risks around it, then we make sense. When the ROI is less clear and you're still trying to get to that stage, sometimes we're not the right body. It's some of the other bodies in the climate finance world who help you get to that level of certainty first.
Okay, and Daniel, your parting words?
I think I will just send out an invitation to everybody interested in the Caribbean as a region, both Canadian and locals, to give a shout out to us via TCS. If there's any opportunities where you believe that we're able to support, that we can have Canadian content involved, at least we can get that conversation ongoing. We can find ways to work together. Um, there's a lot of other partners that we can include. For example, our sister corporation, FinDev, focuses a lot on sustainability and clean tech projects. They also have, a very interesting pocket to support such enterprises. So my invitation basically is reach out. If there's anything interesting you consider that might be of interest, via yourself, Jasmine, or directly through us, CCC, EDC, Global Affairs Canada team, please do so, because there's a lot that Canada can do for the region on all the spaces that we cover, on many sectors that we are able to support. There's many Canadian companies that have the best technology and solutions for what you are currently going through. And in many cases, those conversations can allow a local partner or a local client to see other sides of the project that maybe they're not seeing, that is very crucial and essential for the project to be successful. And we've seen it on many other occasions where the scope of the project is too small and it requires way more things for it to be a great project. So just as a final parting word, know that you have EDC to support you, and I'm sure, of course, TCS, CCC, the provinces to support you. Reach out. We need you to reach out.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you, Fahim, and thank you, Wilson. We really appreciate you taking the time today to be with us and to support this effort. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our program. I'm not seeing any questions or interest in asking about any particular program right now. So with that, I'm going to invite Dr. Burton, if you could just join me now, for us to close out this session. If you don't mind, can you just provide some closing remarks on this morning's session, and then
Yes.
I'll follow up.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. It's truly an honor and a pleasure to be here with you and the esteemed participants, delegates, and also our utility CEOs from the 4 territories that your office represents. I just want to say that CARILEC as an association is open and available for ongoing business development, networking, capacity building opportunities. We always make the point, Yasmin, that we are not just an events management company, as it were. So while we have many events around the year, and I've put a link in the chat of our upcoming events, I'm right here now in Miami on the last day of our Engineering and Procurement Conference and Exhibition, where we had over 220 delegates, over 21 utilities and IPPs members represented. A really great event. The exhibition was sold out from early, over 48 exhibitors at the downtown Hilton Hotel. And then we have the CARIC conference coming up. So opportunities for Canadian business interests to have engagements with Caribbean energy solution providers and ongoing business development services through the CARILEC Secretariat and, of course, your good office, Yasmin. We'd be happy to facilitate business development opportunities, networking opportunities as we move forward in this sector. So take a look, please, at the link on the CARILEC events upcoming in Santo Domingo. I think it was one of the panelists, was it Daniel? I'm not sure, mentioned smart utilities as part of the focus So we do have a utility automation and innovation symposium coming up in Jamaica. Wilson, my apologies. Yes, Wilson. So we have our first ever utility automation and innovation symposium happening in Jamaica, December 1st and 2nd, where the theme is smart utilities integrating ICT, GIS, AMI, and SCADA. So we're taking a close look at these technologies, cybersecurity and AI, and the like. So thank you, Yasmin, for this kind invitation. It was truly a pleasure. I look forward to further engagement with your stakeholders as we seek to advance and develop the sector. Thank you.
And I would like to thank you on behalf of the High Commission here for taking the time out today. I also want to extend our congratulations again to Mrs. Ruth Forbes for her award, the Woman in Energy Award from the Government of Canada, as well as Ms. Mullings from the Grand Bahama Power Company. I also want to thank our panelists in Mr. Richard Hugh from the CUC, Mrs. Seymour from the Bahamas Power and Light, again, Mrs. Forbes from Fortis TCI, and Rick Case. Rick, are you still on? From the Jamaica Public Service Company.
Still here.
Thank you so much, Rick. I know that you've had a busy schedule, but thank you for being here. And to our last set of panelists, Danielle, Wilson, and Fahim, we really appreciate your assistance. Let me just also thank our own colleagues here at the High Commission for their support in delivering today's session. So thank you all, everyone, for being here today. And we look forward to further engagement and dialogue in the coming months and years. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day.